When I came across this strange 1999 CRPG, I wasn't actively looking for it. Nostalgia creeps in from time to time, and you find yourself looking back at old games you've completed or ones with good memories, mechanics, atmospheres, that kind of thing. This long forgotten, if it's even fair to call it forgotten, as I don't even remember hearing anything about it. Nothing in game reviews, magazines, or any other game publications around that time. But this Canadian-made isometric RPG drew my interest after coming across the name in an Internet Archive game blog post, where someone was asking if anyone had played Eucrasia. 9 times out of 10, no one had. The poster wasn't even sure if it was real or just some fever dream that they'd had when they were 13, but the whole thing piqued my interest enough to look into it. I couldn't find much on the game itself directly. Most of the notes or screenshots were low res, or the links provided were so discontinued they just didn't work, and they were for old game magazine sites. The name did pop up elsewhere though, on an old European board game site. Seeing as it's a CRPG, I was wondering if maybe it was based on an even more obscure board game or tabletop game of the same name, and it appears that it may have been, as there was a Eucrasia made in the late 70s in Germany, the author or authors of which seem to be under the nom de plume of Hippocos. There aren't any English translations for it though that I could find, and only a few preview images, but worth looking into further. The 1999 CRPG Eucrasia, however, was made by Kyle Plaskin, Sonia Bianchi, and Mike Donovan under the game company Try to Fly. The three had been working in the fringe areas of the game industry for a while, with Kyle doing design, modeling, and concept art, Sonia programming for some previous games such as Dawn Force 2 and Moe's Big Trip, and Mike writing dialogue, narratives, and stories, predominantly freelance. Though a short-lived company, their last and strangest departure from the usual game genres that had made them moderate success is what I'll be looking at. This game is, of course, Eucrasia. Only 4 games were ever made by the Canadian-based company, and 3 of those games were all tried and true RTS, real-time strategies. The first was technically contract work, as they'd been brought in to help another larger company, Toe Touch Studios, with some finer areas, primarily punch-ups, in their Civil War strategy game, Marks of Iron. The first big game that they, as a company, had worked on. The second was arguably the first signs of what may have informed the creation of Eucrasia years later, as it was a medieval-inspired RTS. 1997 would see them release their first try-to-fly in-house production of Fallen Roses, where players could take control of the White Roses of York or Red of Lancaster. A simple game based on the War of Roses in England during 1455 till 1487, where players would fight AI-controlled enemies in a variety of scenarios and maps, accumulating more knights, upgrades and lands until they won England. The game had 2 campaigns, with an alternate history one where the Yorks won, defeating Henry Tudor in the Battle of Bosworth Field. This game would be well received by strategy fans, but was overshadowed by more established historical strategy games of that year. The following year came the third strategy game, Graveforge, another in-house production which focuses on the player acting as a deity for armies of ghosts, seeking revenge on other spectral forces. This project was spearheaded by Mike and boasted some ambitious ideas, but ultimately would fall short of the previous game due to this fact. Mechanics were obtuse, and in an interview decades later, Sonia would express how difficult it was to meet Mike's requests at that time. Quote, "He had too many ideas all at once, and it took a lot of work. Both Kyle and I had to get him to cut back a lot of them. It was tough, but I don't regret doing it or what it taught me and the team together, really." In the winter of 1999, lead designer Kyle Plaskin would fall ill with an ailment that only his closest friends and families would be privy to, and one that still to this day is unknown. This illness may have been what inspired or guided, for better or worse, the Canadian studio's final game, Eucrasia. Drawing on their joint experiences from previous projects, Try to Fly would try their hand at a computer role-playing game, a genre popular at the time but primarily dominated by, again, more established high fantasy properties. The game was not intended for any sequels, and is honestly surprising that it even found its way out of production and onto shelves, few shelves as they were. It seems to be a somber, haunting journey into a world of organic autonomy. I'm currently waiting for someone to get back to me about a copy of the game that they were selling, so, hopefully I can get that. I'll need a disk drive, but, they're pretty cheap external. I managed to find a PDF of the game book, so I'm going to read through that, see what I can find, and see if I can get my hands on the 1970s tabletop version too. But that's all I've got so far, so I'm excited to kind of explore this game more. Anyway, I've been Haunted Picnic, and I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you next time.